new potential partners are going to be useful to all of you. So if you have the time and kind of want to stick with it, that'll be another kind of section that, along with your registration for the COVID-19, you can have access to. Well, let's get started. And I've got to elevate some folks to co-hosts. Tracy is now a co-host. Mike is a co-host. And last but not least, Francis is a co-host. And what that'll do is just allow you, if everything works right, to share your screen as we move forward. Thanks everyone for coming back. You never know, we're all so busy. Appreciate the time. I thought it was a good conversation, a lot of good information. I learned quite a bit this morning. Appreciated everything that was brought to the table. And you know, when we did the Sun meeting, which is our meeting for small urban operators in early August, virtually, we asked one of the presenters here, Curis and Francis, to do a session. And we got such positive feedback on that session that it became clear that a lot of our members want to have a space to kind of understand some of what vendors are bringing to the table that is a response and offers insights and things to work on and work with on the global pandemic. And so from that was born this one section of this intensive class. And really what I hope that you can glean from this is, you know, oftentimes we say, oh, well, vendors are really partners. And they are, but sometimes that kind of is just words. But in this case, I think you're going to see just how strong a group of partners we have from CT people who we work with. And in each of the cases of what they present, I think it's not, I mean, yes, you're going to see they're going to tout their products and services as they should. But I hope that you guys can become better consumers and better understanding what it is you need and the tools that are out there to help you get where you need to get as you start to make those determinations that we talked about earlier today about what's temporary in my response to the global pandemic and what's permanent. I think the pieces that these three partners represent certainly leans towards what we all decided earlier are the permanent things that you're going to be doing longer term and not just for a month or two. And so I asked each of them to put a brief presentation together, and we're going to go through those. Then we're going to have some dialogue where you can ask questions into the chat box, and I'll make sure everyone gets that. So we kind of flipped coins in my own head, and Mike, who and it's Valio. Am I saying that right, Mike?
That is correct, Valio.
Earlier today I said Vallejo, which shows my own ignorance. Valio is going to be our lead off. So Mike, if you want to kind of share your screen and start from there, it is all yours.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Mike McRae from Valio Thermal Bus Systems. At Valio, not only are we a world leader in heavy-duty HVAC, but now we also have UV air purification technology, and that's what I'd like to talk about today. Can everybody see the screen?
We can, Mike. It's working.
All right, good deal. Like I said, at Valio, we are a world leader in HVAC for the heavy duty bus market. We have HVAC for all types of buses, you know, your electric buses, diesel buses, gas buses, whatever you have out there. But now, like I said, we were actually working on this technology in Germany for the ambulance industry and all before COVID hit, but then it kind of took a precedent and we moved it into the COVID world as well with our UV air purification vent. Our vent, you can mount anywhere in the bus or whatever kind of vehicle you have, really. What it does is it draws the dirty air in on one side, it cleans it with the UV light technology, and it pushes the clean air out on the other side. We use the shortwave ultraviolet light, which is at 254 nanometers. That is the highest dose of UV you can use to get where it cleans the air. Not only does it clean the air of viruses, it also cleans the air of mold and bacteria as well. We have a completely independent system. Like I said, this vent is independent. It's easy to plug and play in any bus, whatever kind of vehicle you have, really. All you got to have is a power source. We use long life UVC lamps, which works up to 12,000 hours. There's no maintenance for this vent, except for after 12,000 hours, you have to replace the bulb, but there's really nothing to do to the vent as far as on a daily or monthly basis. We have done, in Germany, we have done all sorts of testing with this vent to make sure that it did what we said it would do. The one thing I like about Valio is Valio goes the extra mile. When it puts a product out, it wants to be sure that it does what we say it'll do. This is some of the testing that we've done that signifies that it works on viruses, especially the SARS virus. This is another group of testing that we did to make sure, did it again with viruses, the SARS viruses, dust, mold. We were 99.99% effective with the COVID virus. This is another virus, another testing we did. We've done all sorts of testing on this thing to make sure, like I said, to make sure it does what we want it to do. This data sheet kind of gives you the dimensions. It's 27.5 inches long by 13 3/4 inches wide by 4 3/4 inches thick. It moves 200 cubic meters of air an hour. I don't know about you, but I'm not very good with meters, so I broke that down into cubic feet. That's 7,062 cubic feet an hour, which basically boils down to about 1,800 cubic feet every 15 minutes of air that is purifying. Now, what we do is we recommend that these vents are mounted in a way when you turn the key switch on the vehicle, it's purifying the air. So there's nothing for the driver to do. As soon as you turn that key, it's going. We feel like Valio has made the most powerful UV purifier for the coach transit bus market. There's nothing that goes into air, so there's no aerosols or anything you have to worry about spraying on anybody. It like I said, it just brings the air in, it cleans the air, and it pushes it back out. Now I will tell you, I had one question, and I went back to our engineers and made sure that it was right. I had a guy ask me, he said, well, UV light, that's what produces ozone. Well, and he's correct. UV light under 200 nanometers will produce ozone. But like I said, we use the 254 nanometers, which is the most effective way to kill viruses, mold, bacteria, anything that's airborne. Not only do we want to heat and cool your air at Valio, we want to make it where you can breathe easier as well. Give you the peace of mind when you're on the bus. That's pretty much it.
All right, Mike, thanks. Like I said, we'll get to the questions, and I have some that I'll ask, and then we'll open it up to everyone. But really appreciate it, and the ability to kind of mount that in the size of all the vehicles that many of the systems that you're talking to are operating makes a lot of sense. So I appreciate your time there.
Not a problem. Thank you.
Great. And Tracy, with Studio 6 branding, you know, a lot of what we talked about earlier today was communications and the importance of communications. And there was some good discussion about how the way we communicate with our customers, with our funders, internally, that changes that have come about because of COVID-19 are likely to continue. Tracy, it comes to us from a group that, you know, has a lot of expertise in that. I think I've come across Tracy at CASTA meetings in Colorado, so she understands transit as well. And I will now turn the floor over to you, Tracy, and thank you for joining us today.
Okay, thanks. Okay, can everyone see my screen? All right, okay, let's see here. Okay, so as Scott said, I'm Tracy Jones and I'm the principal and the creative director at Studio 6. And Studio 6 is a transit branding and marketing agency. And we are based near Denver. And we have a beautiful blanket of snow today and a beautiful sunny day. So it's actually morning here and not the afternoon. So I'm really excited to be here today because we've spent a lot of time at Studio 6 studying communications ever since COVID hit the US. It is always our goal to stay on top of the trends and stay on top of best practices. So I'm going to share some of the best practices with you today. So I'm going to kind of delve in here. What we have heard repeatedly is, since the virus hit, we've heard a number of consistent questions from different transit providers around the country. And people are really interested in, number one, what are the key messages that we want to be communicating? How do we want to communicate those messages? And how can we do that when we're really constrained with resources? So I've shaped this whole presentation around answering some of these major questions today. So how to shine in the midst of the biggest challenge your system may ever face. And there is not a more timely discussion to focus on branding and marketing than right now. And let's see here. Okay, branding is the art and science of shaping perception. Whenever we develop a marketing and branding campaign, we always start out with the science first. Many of you, I'm sure most of you, have seen the data of essentially this was a survey that was put out by AlphaView over the summer. And what they found was that, right, as you all know, that transit systems around the country are really facing ridership deficits. And, you know, what we're trying to do as marketing experts is really understand what are those messages that are key to riders. So when we look at the data, this is some of the research that we really draw from, and this is where we begin a marketing campaign, is starting here with the data. So I just want to highlight a couple of these major points because it'll influence the rest of the conversation today. Obviously, people are focused on understanding the safety and hygiene measures that different transportation systems are taking. What they want to see is they want to see workers regularly disinfecting high-touch surfaces, knowing operators and other employees are being tested regularly. They want to see customers and operators wearing face masks. They want to see physical changes on the bus, more rigorous enforcement of social distancing, And they also want to see videos of new cleaning and sanitizing techniques. So what we're going to do right now is I want to focus on what you're saying and how you are saying it. We know what the key messages are based on all of this research and all of this data that has occurred. But what we did, which was really, really quite fascinating, was that we went and we studied the best practices. So we studied how different transit systems across the country are communicating right now in the midst of COVID. And this was very insightful. I want to just showcase what is happening over here on the left. And this is a trend. The reason I'm bringing this up is because this is a trend that we are seeing as a problem, on a national basis. Let's look at this ad really closely. Reminder, face coverings are now required while riding a transit bus. But this is a great image. You've got a really welcoming driver. She's welcoming you on the bus. She's wearing a mask. But look at the response on social media. 9 out of 10 people wearing them aren't wearing them properly, with their noses sticking out or gaps in the sides. I have seen drivers allow people to simply carry the mask onto the bus without ever putting it on. And I want to contrast that with a fantastic ad from SEPTA in Philadelphia, and how they frame the same message is that they are creating a mask contest. So post a selfie of you on SEPTA with Mask Up SEPTA, and you could win a September monthly pass. So what they're doing here is they're promoting the same behavior, but they're framing it from a different perspective. And SEPTA received no negative comments at all. And I want to show you this outcome. If I can forward the computer. Okay, so over here on the right, this is the outcome of this campaign. We had a significant amount of engagement, so much so that we had one rider who was consistently posting day after day. She has a mask that coordinates with every outfit, and she was determined to win this contest. But again, I wanted to contrast that with what we're seeing in another community. So notice the language here. Transit riders, remember, whether you're waiting at the bus stop or on the platform, you must wear a facial covering. Face masks or covers are also required inside vehicles. Violators are subject to removal. Together, let's ride safely. And let's look at the response on this. I see so many people at bus stops not wearing a mask. Please, pisses me off because MDT does nothing about it. So the reason that I'm bringing this up is because here we have two different approaches toward the same communication goal done in very different ways. And when we use words from a transit agency like you must, violators, required, when that language is included on social media, what's really challenging is that social media is obviously a two-way dialogue. So you are immediately opening yourself up for a real communication challenge. And the challenge that you've got is, oops, I'm so sorry. The challenge that you've got is that for every negative comment, it takes 6 positive comments to counteract that one negative comment. So really think about how you're going to frame particular messages. A much better way to mandate the mask wearing would be a sign where you don't have that two-way dialogue. Okay, strategy number 2 is optimize your site. After studying transit systems around the country, what we noticed was that many systems are not utilizing their most important real estate on the website. Their most important real estate is that first impression that you see above the fold. So we're recommending that you really include all of your proper COVID protocols visually in this valuable real estate. And you have even large systems like BART that aren't doing a great job of really optimizing their homepage. Another system that we looked at here, it's a really attractive homepage. But again, you see this rider who's the focal point of your homepage and she's not wearing a mask. To contrast that, Pierce Transit does a fantastic job. They align their visuals, they align their messages. Safety is our top priority, reconnecting you with life. MTS, Clean Ride, just really, really modern look for their website. Just another way to do that graphically. And LTD, really simple, attractive website with a real focus on mask wearing. Okay, strategy number 3, build your essential communication tools. One thing that we did early on in during the pandemic was we sent out, Studio 6 sent out a nationwide survey to understand what were the biggest challenges that transit providers are experiencing. And what there was one common answer that came back, and that is many people have an issue of time to execute. One way to solve the time issue is to really proactively develop your marketing toolkit. And this is one, I wanted to focus on the photography library, because this is how we've been doing transit branding for 20 years. And this is how we at Studio 6 would prioritize in a hierarchy the most important things from a marketing perspective. But one of the things that's not often talked about is your photography library. So we wanted to show you how you can do that really well. This is a quick mock-up that we did for Snowmass Village, and we do a lot of custom imagery out in Studio 6. So we work with different systems and produce really beautiful photography. But what happens so often is when transit providers, when they showcase their systems, they will simply showcase the bus. What's so important is that they in fact feature riders interacting with the service itself, because we want to show a really thriving system. More images. Obviously, we talked about the importance of showing mask wearing, of the drivers being featured with mask. And to stretch our budgets for our clients, the other thing that we like to do is when we have a photo shoot, create imagery with and without mask, so that imagery can live beyond this, hopefully this COVID situation. But you'll notice that we really art direct all of these images very carefully. Another way that we can another way that you can stretch your marketing budget, especially for those of you who are in perhaps a destination, is to leverage that imagery from chambers of commerce or tourism departments. This was a campaign that we developed to promote the transit app for Snowmass Village. So get on board faster. And this image we gained access to through their tourism department, but it's a beautiful, beautiful little campaign. These are recent images from the Telluride system, but this happened this photo shoot happened right before COVID. And imagery for the hop. So in Boulder, we branded the hop, skip, jump, leap, and the bound instead of numbered routes. And this system serves the University of Colorado. I'm going to skip this. Okay. I wanted to get to this section. This is really important. Communicate the right message with the right tone. So since this has all happened, the tone of communications has shifted dramatically. When COVID first hit, Atlanta was literally discouraging people from riding the bus. And I want to show you what a great job the MARTA system did of communicating and really resonating on a really deep level during the first days of COVID. So you can see there was a loneliness to that video. They were discouraging riders. They showed empty platforms, empty buses. And since this happened in the early days of COVID, the community sentiment has really dramatically shifted. And I wanted to show you this video. This is from TransLink. That's interesting. It's not playing. Okay. Well, it was. What was that?
Try to refresh it and see if it'll sometimes if you keep a link open long, it'll do that.
Shoot. Oh well, that's okay. We'll look at this one. This is another video from TransLink. But notice there's just an uplifting tone. That gives you a little snippet of that video, but it's very uplifting. You can see what they're doing to focus on cleanliness. So there's been a really dramatic shift in tone since the virus hit. And that's consistently what's happening right now with campaigns around the country and in Canada. So this is the TransLink system. This is the system out of Nashville and focus on how to wear a mask, but really fun and playful. And another strategy that has been really effective that's been utilized by transit systems around the country is focusing on what the mask can do for other people. So I'm wearing it for my wife and daughter. I'm wearing it for my mom. So, okay, my final strategy, maximize your message and your budget. When we think about optimizing our social media posts, how do we stretch our budgets? One of the best ways to do this is, number one, we're boosting posts. The other thing that we're doing very effectively is introducing animation and movement. At Studio 6, we do municipal work in addition to transit work. So over the summer, one of our clients, they had a drive-up movie event. And this was a very simple social media campaign that we illustrated specifically for that client. And I wanted to show you, the reason I wanted to pull this particular campaign up is we're always doing A/B testing. So for this campaign, we created 3 different ads and we wanted to test which would be the most effective. When we created a custom illustration, we added movement to that ad. Look at the levels of engagement. Look at the difference in those numbers. So we're able to gauge which of these is effective. And then this allowed us to understand what we could run that second week. This event sold out in 1 week. So, we can very easily optimize social media. You just really have to know, you have to really gauge what's the right message, how do we say it, and how do we execute on it. And that's my presentation.
Thanks, Tracy. That was great. A lot of ideas there for folks that really overlapped and speak to what we discussed earlier this morning. And some interesting, I'm sure, questions will come up about some of the techniques you're talking about. If you could stop share on your screen so that there you go. Thank you. And as I said earlier, last but certainly not least, is Francis Grinstead with Curis Systems. And you know, apropos of what we were just talking about, I noticed Curis suddenly was out there liking CTAA's social media posts. And honestly, that was the first place I came across them as a vendor in this space. And from that, we communicated, and it was clear that they were building products that were designed for our systems and members. And so I raised that to tell you that, and some of you I know I don't have to tell them. I'm looking, for instance, at Julia at Herda. I know they do a lot with social media, particularly for a rural transit system, a lot of emphasis on that. But this is another good example that social media was how we engaged with Curis first. And so a lot of kind of what we were just learning about there applies in really broad ways. And I'm going to turn it over to Francis, but their focus is on the what we all were talking about and continue. Foggers, what does that mean? How does it work? How do you use these things? What do they do? So I'll turn it over to you, Francis, and share your screen if you got a presentation, and we'll go from there. And you are, you are muted, so I unmuted you, hopefully. Good.
Gotcha. Thanks so much. Nice to see everyone again. If you maybe caught my workshop, we did a small workshop for CTAA or Metro or APTA. We've been in the transit industry for quite a while, and we talked about pandemic preparedness before we had a pandemic. And we knew it was coming because we study the science of it and the germs and how they mobilize and move around the world, not just the country, but from city to city. It takes 3 days for a virus to make it from one side of the US to the other, the Pacific Northwest to New York City. So we saw this coming a while ago, and we talked to you guys about it. So you might have seen me before doing this, and we've been talking to transit about this, and you might have seen us at APTA or BusCon or a number of other shows that we do. And at that time we were talking about general germs, which we had, Texas had issues with tuberculosis. In Florida we had hepatitis. In California there was hepatitis A and hepatitis C combination. So, you know, we've responded to quite a bit of organisms and provided effective means of killing those. And SARS-CoV-2 is no exception. So COVID came along and we were very ready, not just with the portable systems that you see there used by TriMet, but also with built-in units that go on board and you just push a button at the end of the day. But who are we? And not just you've seen us around, we are the manufacturers of hybrid hydrogen peroxide technology. It's a fancy way of saying fogging system. And we've been doing this for over 10 years and we're international. I'm the founder and CEO of Curis System. We also have founded service companies and certified service companies, over 30 now nationally, to perform services around the country, whether it's in healthcare, schools, or transit, in order to use multiple tools in their toolbox to be successful against germs. And you need multiple tools in your toolbox. And there's no way around cleaning. Everybody asks me that. And, you know, but, you know, we've been around for a very long time and you've seen us since probably 2014. And we're heavily invested in no-touch disinfection systems because we believe that, you know, some of these pathogens, right? Some of these germs are really dangerous, and they're dangerous to be around, whether we're breathing them in or touching them and infecting ourselves through that method. So if you attended one of my earlier talks, we got a lot more into the modes of transmission and how coronavirus enters the body. Right now, we're going to talk about what some of the tools that we're using in our toolbox and the germ category, and help you make better choices, because we believe that if we educate you, you will understand disinfection, environmental disinfection or environmental decontamination. That's what this is called. And if you understand a few basic rules, then you can make better choices for the products that you're selecting. So, log reduction equals risk reduction. If we look at this chart on the right-hand side, this is called the Spalding chart. This is how hard is it to kill certain germs on a surface. And so you see things like bacterial spores, mycobacteria, which is TB, norovirus, mold. You see lots of things. And if you look down at the bottom, there's coronavirus, and you think, oh my gosh, it's super easy to kill on a surface, so we don't have any problems. But the EPA, because it doesn't live on a surface saying, come and kill me, it lives in lots of mucus and stuff that we put out of our bodies. And it's very virulent, and it's actually one of the tougher to kill viruses. And so the EPA says, well, if you have a norovirus kill claim, we feel pretty good about you killing coronavirus. And so, they give us this Spalding classification, which is used by the WHO. It's used by the CDC, by the EPA, to help us understand what level of disinfectant we should be using. So if I have tuberculosis that I'm worried about, I know that my disinfectant needs to be pretty strong, because it's up there on the top tiers of this. If I have norovirus, well, norovirus stays alive on a surface indefinitely. So it stays alive until you go and kill it with something that is powerful enough to kill it. So that's why you see all these cruise ships cleaned and disinfected, and then reinfect the next round of passengers that go out on it, because it's a very tough bug to kill. And so, in the world of germs, this is an important piece of the puzzle. Curus is not just for SARS-CoV-2, but it is for the next harder to kill germ, which I am so sorry to tell you, that is also coming. And in some cases, it's already here. As you heard, in some states, we have issues with tuberculosis already, Hep A, Hep B combination, Hep A, Hep B, Hep C combinations. So we target the hardest to kill bacterial spore, which is the top dog on that list. And that is because if we can be effective there, we can get the other organisms as well, and easily do that. And we're used by a number of transit systems, but we've also got the National Guard using our system because it is so efficacious, and you can prove it. There's not many systems out there where you just place an indicator in the area being treated, and you can look at the completion of the treatment and say, yep, it did what it was supposed to do. That's called validation. So that's important too. Another thing to understand is something called log reduction. And we're going to take a really complicated subject and make it super simple. How many of individual organisms does it take to get me sick? When you're shopping at the grocery store and you see your wipes that say 99.9% effective, and you're excited, you're like, wow, that's so great. Yay. Well, not so much. So if you look at this log reduction on the left side of the screen, this is what log reduction means. And so if you're looking at 99.9, which is at the bottom of that, you'll see all of those organisms. There's still 1,000 organisms left behind on a surface. And that's 3 nines. That's why it's called a 3 log reduction. Then you go up and you see your disinfectant and you say, well, more nines is better. Well, so I'm going to get 99.99. Wow, that's amazing. It still leaves 100 organisms left on a surface. And then 5 nines, that 5 log reduction is 10, and 6 nines is less than 1, because legally you can't say 0. What does all that mean? all these nines on the labels of these disinfectants or these ionizing systems that have studies or any other system that you see. Why are those nines important? Because Dr. Sutar, a Canadian fellow, came up with a method of measurement. So assuming 1 million organisms on a surface, which believe it or not is not that much, utilizing X product, what can we expect to be left over? And why does that matter? How many does it take to, get me sick? And so then people start to study the individual organisms, and this is called an infectious dose. How many does it take to make someone sick? And in the case of TB, you can see that the infectious dose is 10. So if I am going after something with Mycobacterium, not only does Mycobacterium have to be on my disinfectant label, and I need a pretty potent thing there, but I also need at least a 5 log reduction on Mycobacterium to affect to basically get beyond the infectious dose. So I have less than what will make me sick. MRSA, if I'm going after MRSA, it's greater than 100,000 organisms. So I think, oh, okay, well, maybe I'm okay there. Remember, well, you probably don't know this, but MRSA staph doubles its population every 20 minutes. So we got to be careful there too. Then there's measles, and that's less than 1 that can make you sick. It's very infectious according to the different studies. So that means I need a 6 log reduction. So I need 6 nines, 4 behind the decimal point. Hepatitis A, that's 10 organisms. So that means that I need a 5 log reduction, 5 nines. Norovirus, 4 organisms. So that means I need a 6 log reduction product, and it has to have norovirus on the label. I have certainly seen norovirus be very, very resistant. If you get a norovirus organism, definitely be very aggressive with it. And SARS-CoV-1, because we don't have data yet on SARS-CoV-2, is as little as 67 organisms. So I need at least 5 logs. In other words, 5 nines on my disinfectant, on my ionizer, on my device that I'm implementing in order to affect the infectious dose. In other words, in order to eliminate everything is in there that could make passengers or drivers sick. And so this is really important to know. And so for us, again, because we don't know what we don't know, we have certainly been in scenarios where we swab different buses, and people say, well, people have been complaining about getting MRSA on the bus, but we find a whole lot more than staph MRSA on there. So because you don't know what you don't know, Curis aims for the hardest to kill germ, which is that bacterial spore, at a 6 log reduction, so leaving less than 1 organism left behind. And that is always the case for us. And how do we do it? Curis makes regulations for COVID-19 very, very easy and valid. We are EPA registered as a 7% solution, hydrogen peroxide solution, and the device is EPA registered to use them together, and they are both EPA registered for a known outcome. And that's really important because if you're in California, I know that the EPA is regular visitors to some of the transit companies that we work for, and it is an easy discussion for them to show our EPA registration label and the products that they're using and how they're using it. And how you're using it means everything. Because if you're in the situation below where you have an EPA disinfectant and a random fogger or a random sprayer, what are you getting on the back end? Do you have an EPA registered solution? In some cases, the answer is no. And in fact, in a lot of cases. So it's important to understand how you use your products and how you apply them is really important. That's because everybody now knows that you must spray a disinfectant on a surface and you must stay wet for X amount of time. And to read the label to see that if you are trying to go after coronavirus, then you would read the label and it would say maybe 10 minutes. And as it starts to dry, you need to reapply it. Down here in Florida, we reapply 5 times to meet a 10-minute disinfection time for spray and wipe. So it does need to stay wet that long because that's how they're approved, and that's how you get the most efficacy out of the product that you're using. Otherwise, you're just moving germs from one area to another. So that dwell time is important. And fog is really great because not only does it get everywhere that air touches, all the surfaces, but it stays and holds and maintains that environment for the amount of time that it needs to. So that's really important when you're trying to actually kill something. And it's important when you're trying to make people feel better. So how does Curus make transit healthier? Well, like I said, we do get a 6 log reduction, which is 99.9999%. And it's not just the fog that's going into the bus, but it's going on the seat, under the seat, on the handrail, everywhere people forget to wipe, through the soil load, on obstacles, on the flooring, on the ceiling, anywhere anyone could possibly touch. It is a very thorough form of disinfection. And so it is designed to be used in that way so that it gets everything and it's gone. There's nothing left behind that you would worry about. What are the different ways that you could use the Curus system? Well, Curus makes transit easy because you can carry the little suitcase-sized Curus fogger onto the bus and place it in there and let it fog. You could port into a space, so place it through the doors or in the crack of a window through an extension hose and never touch the inside of a bus. Or for a direct application, you can hand spray from the base unit as well and simply switch from one application to another. And the nice thing is every time that you use the Curus, it's going to generate a report that says bus number 1109 was treated today at 8:42 and by whom, and it gives you all the details, how long it ran, who did it. So that's kind of nice when people come looking to see which have you treated and which haven't you. And Curus makes transit safer in a couple of ways. We've already talked about how it's, yes, it's definitely efficacious and it works for COVID-19, and also beyond whatever is coming behind it and the harder to kill organisms, which will happen. It is also no touch disinfection. You can operate it remotely. No staff has actually ever have to go on the transit equipment to be contaminated potentially by some sort of harmful pathogen. So it's can be operated with a tablet and an app or a phone and turned on and off in that way. Or you can set them outside the equipment like it is on the right, and you just plug the hoses into windows or doors, and it can do 2 at the same time. It can be a plug and play situation as well. Very simple to use, and both of these systems are employed currently in many transit systems around the country. And this is sort of what it looks like. It looks like a fog, but it's dry. It's not wet. It looks like if you walk outside and it's a foggy morning, and this is what it looks like inside, and it's covering every nook, cranny, and crevice. And it's nice and dry and dissipates rather quickly. I wanted to kind of tie in what Tracy was saying with branding. A lot of the transit systems currently are branding what it is that they're doing. So they're using these decals on the bus. So a reminder as people are getting on the bus, what are you doing to make it safer? In fact, I have a really interesting fellow in Kentucky that asks me all the time to send him more decals. And the conversation is, well, you haven't really used a lot of solution. He says, yes, but I need more decals because people keep taking the decals. They have become a very hot topic and a very popular thing. It's really makes you feel warm and fuzzy, the riders, the drivers, staff, to know that the bus has been medically disinfected for their health and safety. And so doing that and placing a date on there is a visual reminder of what's, the level of disinfection that you've treated your bus with. And usually this also has a QR code that can take them to the website or show a video of the buses being fogged. And this, I wanted to show you how some transit system, like in Portland, is using the Curus as to improve the image so that they can get their ridership up. It's not just the decals, but also, how do they do it in their environment? So that is my presentation. Hopefully I've given you a little bit of information you could use, not just for selecting potentially a system that you could use as a disinfectant tool, but also so that when you're looking at other products that you will be looking to use as spray and wipe, you'll understand what it is that you're looking for on those EPA registered disinfectants or any sort of tool, and understand the log reduction and what your target pathogen is, right? What is that target germ? How hard is it to kill? How many nines do I need? We do a lot of training and we do a lot of workshops for facilities, healthcare facilities, transit facilities. Lately, we even did we did a workshop for the Smithsonian, and someone said, well, how do I fog a priceless painting? I said, well, why would you? Is someone touching the priceless painting? Because I don't think that's allowed. So we want to, make sure that we understand the tools that we're using and what it is that our goals are. So thanks so much for your time. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Thanks, Francis. No, I was, we're in a different place when I can honestly tell you it's the first time I've ever in 32 years hosted a CTAA training session where the phrase "the world of germs" came up. And and honestly, I don't mean that humorously. You as transit leaders, as CEOs and GMs at your agencies, suddenly you have to know these kinds of things, and how many nines and what. This was a year ago. None of this was part of our transit lexicon. Zero. And it goes to show you how abrupt and significant when I said, this was kind of the ultimate disruptor. This is a big piece of it. So I have a couple questions I want to ask each of the presenters, and I'm going to start off in the same order with Mike and with Valio. Obviously, a lot of CTA's members are operating cutaways, smaller vehicles. The obvious question is, and I think I know the answer, but does your unit work in smaller vehicles?
Yeah, it does. It can work in any size vehicle.
Okay.
what you're going to need is in the larger units, you'll just need multiple bins.
Okay, okay. Good thing to know. And I if I didn't ask that, a lot of the systems certainly would, and they're going to get their chance momentarily. Tracy, for you, when we were talking last week, you mentioned how, you know, you like working with the rural agencies, and a lot of the examples you were giving were big metros, and a lot of that is absolutely scalable to rural. But what are some of the things you're learning on a communications basis on working with smaller agencies? Are there any kind of things that you'd point to along those lines?
I think that rural agencies don't have the financial resources that the bigger agencies have.
True.
So, you know, we love working with the rural systems because oftentimes, if you are a Nashville, if you're San Francisco, so we come in and we help the rural agencies look as good as professional as the big agencies without the high price tag. So yeah, Scott, that, I mean, that's our sweet spot is rural.
Really important. For you, Francis, you know, you showed the maintenance staffer at TriMet running the system. Do you guys do training with systems to teach them how to use the system? Because, you know, those are powerful chemicals. You gotta, you know, be trained on how to use it. And I think I know the answer, but I want to make sure you were able to talk to that.
Yeah, we do. Training is important. The training includes education. Like we did it, you know, it's hard to do a 10-15 minute spot and include education. It's so important, the education foundation of what you're doing. And like I said, it helps you choose the right products across the line. Training on our product is super simple. As a 7% hydrogen peroxide solution, it's not a hazardous solution. But really any chemical that you would use, anything, you would want to understand the basics of it to use your gloves, use your goggles, because you just don't want anything to splash up in your eyes, even, you know, stuff you use over the counter at home. So yes, of course, there's training on, you know, when people purchase and implement. Right now, we've been doing a lot of Zoom training, and we've got our training team here that's doing a lot of that. In some cases, it's the entire facility that's taught on infection prevention. You know, what is a high touch point surface? What is the right rag to use? Because some of them disperse chemicals on a surface, other ones absorb them. Are you using the wrong ones? How do you know your dwell time? What does the back of that EPA label mean? I'm about to institute a new product that has nothing to do with your product. And can you tell me, does it work? So we have really interesting conversations and welcome those all the time, because I think the stronger we make you guys and the smarter we make you, the better choices we'll make. And, you know, I myself ride those buses. I know that, you know, I've got kids in college that ride the buses. I have my mom that have, you know, ridden the buses. I want these areas to be safe, right? And we all do. And so I want us making the right choices, and training is an important part of that. Not necessarily because it's a dangerous product to use. It's not. It's used all over and very easily, but because we want you to use things easily, quickly, efficiently. And those are really important to transit. We have learned over the years, that's a really important thing. You know, what is the throughput on that? So, so those are really important pieces that we do include. And sometimes it's virtually, and if the area allows, it can be in person.
Well, with that, I'm going to open it up. I hope some of our participants have some questions. Remember, CTA operates under the overarching principle that there are no dumb questions. So ask them. You've got experts in front of you that you don't typically have. And here's your chance to make sure that you're understanding. So I'll open it up to the crowd. Just unmute yourself. You don't have to show your video if you don't want to. Randy from Vermont has already, Mike, he wants to know how much per unit. So That's always a good question to get, I think, in your perspective.
Yeah, the retail price on these units is about $2,800.
All right. And also, I'd like if any of you are getting CARES Act funding, all of what you're hearing here, you can spend CARES Act funds on. Every one of these pieces, including the communications pieces, because you are responding to the pandemic, and that is what the CARES Act funds are for. Let's see, Julia wants to know, what is the cost of replacement bulbs? Mike's already got that, about $400, $440 exactly. Again, that's within the kind of price points rural transit can handle. Other questions? And you don't have to put them in the chat. You can actually, that's the beauty of Zoom. You can actually talk to folks. Don't be shy.
Question for Francis. Corwin, Ride Connection, Portland. We bought some foggers. We have 3 foggers we currently use. We're using a simple green solution in those foggers. After watching your presentation, I wonder if we're killing anything. Just your thoughts?
Right. Gosh, that's a great question. Alyssa, can you look that up for me, please? I don't believe you are. Did you check out the EPA N list?
No. These were purchased through procurement. I'm just the end user and trainer.
Yeah, I know. So I'm having somebody look on that one topic. I don't know. There's so many products out there, but I believe
so
that.
Francis, educate folks, and you kind of did, but let's focus it a little bit here. If I'm in the market, any of these, you said an EPA N list. What are the 2 things that you would say I got to look for and make sure they are at X, whatever the product is?
Right, Corwin, if I am choosing any sort of disinfectant for my transit system, really for anywhere in my facility, it is important to be in government compliance with that. And so that is going to be on the EPA N list. So if you Google EPA lookup, it's going to come up with a couple of Google sites, and the first one, it's going to end with epa.gov. And EPA lookup, you're going to select pesticidal registration. It's not a pesticide, but that's the governing body that recognizes what is a disinfectant and when isn't. And so click on that. And then on the bottle itself, if there is an EPA registration, okay. If there is an EPA registration on the bottle, which there always is if it's EPA registered, then you punch in that number and it will pop up with whether it's approved, what its EPA label. You can also Google on the epa.gov website for N list, and you can pop in that number and it will tell you what the dwell time is. In other words, how long the product needs to stay wet on a surface.
What it looks like, folks.
Yep, that's the actual. So if you click on search for any product type, so click on this. Yep, click on that. And then let's see, we could give you our EPA registration just so you can look it up. 93324-1 and hit enter. And they always want feedback. And so there's our product. You know, go a little bit further, it's going to give you all those labels. If you go to the top one, which is the latest and greatest, you click on that. And it loads up the actual approved language by the EPA. Now ours is based on a fogging product, but it also has direct spray. So you'll see both of those on there. And it gives you a whole long list. But if you go, it says, hang on, if you go to the front of it, the top page, you'll see right away, it says, is that the first page?
Yep.
Okay. Then it says label amendment, emerging viral pathogen claim. And that's important because that is basically giving EPA registration approval on that. And that's what this letter is about. But if you go to the almost to page number, let's go down way, just keep going. I don't remember what number it's on. There's my EPA registration that says that I'm approved and all my tripart soil load, that bacterial spore. We can slow down. There's C. difficile. There's my fogging. Tells me, you know, my log reduction. We can keep going. And keep going down. I want to show you what you're looking for.
Wow, this is a long letter.
Oh yeah. You can, it just keeps on going. And this is a federal document. Okay, stop. Okay, go. Wait.
Oh, up a little.
Stop. Okay, now we're using it as a direct spray. Okay, keep going down. Okay, we'll go down a lot further. So this means that we're approved as fogging. We're approved as direct spray. Stop. That's okay.
That's all right. I'm trying my best here.
The viral pathogen. What page is that on the EPA label? Yep. You'll keep going down. Viral pathogens will always be at the end.
This is usually the way I look through federal legislation, Francis.
Yes, stop here.
Yeah.
Sorry, go up a little bit. Let's see if we have it.
Control F.
Okay, let me go down again. Sorry, I'm sorry.
It's fine. It's fine. We're doing
Okay,
the best we can.
slow down. There we go. Nope, go down,
So
go down. Do you find it on page? There we go. That is the emergency viral pathogen claim. It's saying that which germs are, you know, what is the approval for this? If your disinfectant is not on this list, if it doesn't say enveloped viruses, large non-enveloped viruses, small non-enveloped viruses, you're looking for something. We have all of the viral claims. Sometimes you'll see, yeah, that's not really going to help you.
I'm going to stop sharing. We'll get back to talking now. But
Yeah, if you have, if you see that is on the label, then it is approved for viruses, and it needs to be on the label. There is on EPA.gov the EPA N list, and you can also search the N list with that EPA registration number, and make sure that you're and that will help you be compliant with all of the disinfectants that you're using. And you want to make sure that you're doing that. I'm being told Simple Green is not on the N list. So whether it's direct spray or fogging, yeah, sorry, it's not.
Okay, no, it's an eye opener.
Yeah, and Corwin, I'll tell you, I think one of the hardest things to do is, I love it when, you know, people are doing such a good job. They're really working hard to choose and try and make people safer and transit safer. But one of the hardest things to say is, well, that's not really doing what you think you're doing. But you know, it's a quick conversation and a quick, you know, talk about what the goals are, because sometimes people have different goals. And you know, once you can find all the information yourself, now you know, maybe you could start looking at a different one.
thanks, and Corwin, sorry to give you that news and take us on a, but we all learned something there. Other questions?
This is Brenda from Brookings Area Transit in Brookings, South Dakota. What is the availability of these units? So many of the products and defenses that we've tried to order have been a long time coming. Actually, we had some that we ordered in April, just got them within the last month. So what's the availability?
Mike, you go first and then Francis.
The UV vent will be available in January.
Okay. which
So,
sad to say is not that far away right now.
right. So Curus is available now. We had to ramp up production because Curus is used also to decontaminate PPE and N95 masks. So FDA required us to ramp up our production exponentially. So, other people do benefit from that.
Okay, next question.
Well, if I can, Scott?
Yeah, Gary, go ahead.
Yeah, we currently use Curus. We found them about 2 years ago at BusCon. And of course, in government, it takes a long time to procure something. But I will say that I believe, and Jody's also on the line, that we see a reduction in people even getting sick, because every Friday night when we're ready to close, we set it off in our office environment. And of course, we have a daily routine for the buses, but I truly believe that we see a lot less people coughing and doing whatever. And it's actually been, I'm sure there's all good products out there, a lot of good products, but for us, it has been a great asset. And we do all of our vehicles, and we recently had a breakout in our maintenance facility. And, that night we came in and loaded the entire building with our 3 machines and set them off. And basically, even our health department, our local health department, and our emergency services who validated for us, says will do the trick. So we came in the next day, and it fogs, it goes away, and it's actually pretty unique.
Yeah.
Thanks, Gary. Any of your colleagues, any transit managers want to ask Gary anything as well, we can do so.
A question about the Curus. Is there only one size of the fogger? So there's just the one unit, the one size for whether that's large buses or small buses, it's just one?
So there's a couple of different Curus products. I think the one Gary is using is the Curus Core, Gary. So that fogs from the base unit only. There's one that will fog from hoses, and that is the Curus 3, and it does hand sprayer, and it fogs into the spaces and ports in, and also fogs from the base unit. But they can do up to 10,000 cubic feet, and actually Kansas State University is pushed that limit up to 15,000 cubic feet per device, and they test everything. They swab test. And so, they're finding out what the limits of that are. Right now, our engineers are comfortable with 10,000 cubic feet. And I'm not going to scare them and tell them anything until I have it in writing from the other guys. But Gary, I am so pleased. I'll tell you, it feels so good to be able to do something during this pandemic for people who are, you see things going so badly, and you just feel like you want to help. And really, we've been running extra shifts. We've been running 7 days a week. We have people driving from Minnesota to Florida to pick up equipment, and we'll work all night to get it done for them. And it really feels good. I had one lady, I just started to cry. She said, "You made my pandemic." Oh my gosh. I said, okay, that's great.
It sounds
But
like
I'm
a
so
new line of
glad.
Hallmark cards.
Yes, and it is a team. We have a great team here, and we have a service team that is always on the ball. And that's important too, because, people, Gary, we fog our offices too. We have people here that are immunocompromised, and we've had coronavirus here. We've had COVID in our warehouses, and we've had it in our offices, and we fog every night, and we fog the warehouses. And I can say that we feel pretty good. We have young people, so we find it comes from our college kids that come in here and intern, and they come in and they're sick. But we do find that we're a pretty healthy bunch as well. And it is, you're right, there's not a sticky residue to it. So it just goes away. It's just water and oxygen after the fact. It's quite nice. So thank you for that. I'm going to share that with the group. So thank you for that.
And
Can I
Jody,
add something?
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Jody, I'm sorry.
Sorry. And just to let everybody know, I've carried the machines up and down our back steps. They really aren't that heavy. They're easy to maneuver. I do know we shared the units with all of our staff as they came in and showed them what we were going to be doing. And a lot of the drivers were really grateful that we were going that extra step, and it felt like they were having that extra like an extra barrier put in place that was going to help them stay healthy during this time. And they know we're working through, because they'll see them in the lot running, because we'll put up the signs and plug them in, and they'll see the equipment being cleaned. It's a whole nother reassurance that we're committed to keeping them safe.
Well, Jody and Gary, let's connect what you guys are doing to what Tracy was talking about. How are you telling the community you're doing this? How are you communicating this level of protection?
Well, we were stuck between a rock and a hard place, and part of it is our spreading the word. We do that through like our commuter Facebook page or whatever. But because we do not have our 2021 or 2020, I guess we're going for 21, grant signed yet, we have not, through the MTA, been given permission to spend our advertising dollars. So we are a little stuck, and we do a lot of communicating other ways through our route match system, and we have a system called Blackboard Connect, which reaches all the clients. But we plan to, and we have it all set, and we are going to move forward with or without their approval, because we waited long enough. But Julia, just to go back to yours, and you basically just punch in the cubic feet of the whatever you're going to sanitize, and that's what sets the timing of the machine and how long it will fall. Very, very simple. Leave the area through the remote, start it, and no one is there. It's actually pretty good. But we are planning to do that. We have a plan all ready to go. Scott, to go back to what you said for promoting what we do, I think our drivers do a good job of it now, because we do have permanent barriers that we create and stuff. So we're giving it our best shot, and knock on wood, we've been very lucky.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
far.
I think that what's so important is, if so many of you are using these really advanced systems, that you're promoting those on, so obviously with the video, because like I said, video really increases engagement, and that will be one of your best ways to instill trust in riders. So if you're using all of these systems, definitely promote them using video.
Very important. And it kind of ties together the messages of all three of our presenters today is like, know what you're doing, use the right products, and then make sure you're telling the community in positive ways, with positive language, with imagery. And, one thing we definitely heard from Tracy, show it as much as say it. The show it tends to increase the visibility. Gary, I'd tell you, social media is pretty inexpensive when it comes to budgets, and can be used to do a lot of this too. But I want to thank the presenters. A lot of good information here today. As I noted in the chat box, I'll be sharing, I'll collect their presentations and make sure I share those with you all, so you have those. This is being recorded, so along with the presentations, the recording will be sent to you as participants, so you can have access to all this information. If Tracy, Mike, and Francis want to put their email addresses in the chat box, so you know who you can talk to, I'd encourage you to do so. But a lot of good information here, and I think this really was a good follow-up to what we talked about this morning, which was kind of more broad-based looks at things. Now we got real specific here. As I told you, and I just kind of highlighted it in the chat box, that's the link that Taylor Clockey on CTA staff put in. It's now up a bit, which is a good thing. We've been using the chat box, but this link is the one that you can use at 3 o'clock to get that bonus content on NEMT and kind of where we're headed on NEMT. Reason we want you to go to that is because many of you are rural operators or you're specialized operators. And so taking people to healthcare, working in that space is something you do regularly. So we give you access to that. And really, Tracy, Mike, and Francis, thank you. A lot of good information you shared with us today, and we very much appreciate it. So if let me make sure everyone saw those email addresses. If you have any other questions, you guys all know how to reach me. I'm happy to get you any information. And thanks for participating today. And I'll see some of you at 3 o'clock in the NEMT session. And for others, if I don't see you, please be safe and keep up the great work that you're doing in your communities. I often say this, transit is not a business where anybody says thanks very often. You can do 10,000 trips a day perfectly, and the one that you're late on, that's the only one you're ever going to hear about, right? But I want to say to you, thanks, because I know how hard the work has been the last 8 months, and it's the accomplishments, whether it's the CARES Act funding or anything else that we get to do in DC with the legislators, it's because of the work you're doing in the communities. That's the product that we're selling. And so keep up that great work. And if there's any ways we can help, please let us know. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.